insecure woman is not who most people think she is. She doesn't arrive as chaos, she arrives as care. She remembers what you said when you thought nobody was listening. She notices when your voice gets tired before you admit you are. She asks if you made it home. And most men mistake that for certainty. They think she's calm, she's low maintenance, she's easy. He thinks she doesn't need reassurance. He thinks she's strong enough to handle silence. But he never realizes that reassurance just feels embarrassing for her because needing someone once cost her own dignity. So she learns to need quietly because insecurity rarely starts in love. It rarely starts there. It starts long before anybody ever calls her complicated. Somewhere early, affection required translation. Someone loved her until they didn't. It's that straightforward. Someone promised stability until the mood changed. Someone stayed in the room but emotionally disappeared. Maybe the voices were loud. Maybe the silence was louder. Maybe she learned that peace could vanish without warning. Because children who cannot leave learn prediction instead. They learn tone before words, distance before departure, intention before conflict. And guess what adults called her for all that? Mature. That's what they said. They called her wise for her age. They called her empathetic. But nobody noticed that she was memorizing survival. Because vigilance looks like kindness when you're young, and later it still does. Because her mornings don't begin with the day. They begin with the memory right now. That's what they begin with. I'm going to tell you exactly what it sounds like. Did yesterday feel different? Why did that joke stay in her chest all night? Why hasn't he said good morning yet? Nothing dramatic has happened yet, but abandonment rarely announced itself before. It arrived quietly. So she prepares just like back then. She reads conversations, and then she measures effort. Not loudly, but quietly. If she stops texting first, will he notice? If she pulls back slightly, will effort come toward her without asking? Because asking feels like begging, and begging feels like humiliation. So observation replaces vulnerability. She gives carefully. She remembers the birthdays. She checks in with others forget. Because if love is maintained perfectly enough, maybe it won't disappear this time. Maybe it won't disappear. But underneath all that warmth, there's grief moving through the room like weather nobody can see. Because this is exactly where men enter the story. At first, they feel chosen. She listens deeply. Sees exhaustion before he says he's tired. Asks about fears that nobody ever asked him about. After a world full of emotional distance, he feels relief right here. He thinks she finally sees me. And she does. She does. I want you to understand, but confusion arrives quietly. He misses a text because work ran long and she feels distance. He thinks that nothing happened, but she feels the floor move. He hears questions, she hears silence. He feels monitored, she feels abandoned. Neither of them are lying, but they're standing inside of different histories. Right. And then he begins apologizing for ordinary things, explaining normal days, reassuring storms he never saw forming. At first it feels like closeness. Later it feels like walking through emotional glass because some men will say that the insecure woman is exhausting. Sometimes cruelly, sometimes because they're tired. But a lot of the times it's because men have wounds too. That's what happens a lot of the time. Many men learn that love meant performance. Be useful, fix problems, and don't fail. So when reassurance never seems to land, it feels like he's failing a test he never agreed to take. So he withdraws, he gets quieter, he calls it peace, and women almost never hear this clearly enough. Emotional withdrawal is not calm. It's not. It is abandonment slowed down. Silence where honesty should stand. Distance where courage should live. Any man who refuses a difficult conversation teaches a woman that she must guess instead of trust. He leaves her alone carrying questions while standing right beside her. So when a man does that slow motion abandonment, guess what becomes her responsibility? Confusion. Guess what becomes her labor? Doubt. And because relationships don't only end when someone leaves, they end when someone slowly disappears while insisting nothing's wrong. But also, men never hear this gently enough either. Constant suspicion does not protect love at all. It starves it. Affection cannot breathe under investigation. Every delayed response becomes evidence, and every quiet night becomes a verdict, and every imperfect moment becomes a trial. Eventually, a man just stops reaching. Not because he stopped loving her, but because nothing he offers survives the cross-examination. And so love does not always die from betrayal. Sometimes it dies from exhaustion. Two people trying not to be hurt accidentally becoming the thing that other people fears. That's exactly what goes on. And some of you are waiting for a verdict. I already understand. Some men want permission to say she ruined everything. But resentment is grief pretending to be wisdom. I want you to understand that. Resentment is grief pretending to be wisdom. Some women are just waiting to hear that every alarm was justified. But fear cannot heal while it refuses to look at itself. I'm going to just say it again for you. Fear cannot heal while it refuses to look at itself. Pain explains behavior, but it does not excuse what it becomes. Men disappear emotionally and call it peace. Women interrogate love and call it intuition. Both swear they're protecting themselves, but both slowly lose the thing they were trying to protect. Entire lives spent searching for confirmation instead of change. That's exactly what goes on. But we can go way deeper than this, because most insecure women are not afraid of men. At all. They're afraid of humiliation, afraid of loving honestly and discovering that they imagine safety, afraid of relaxing into happiness only to realize they misunderstood everything again. So fear learns to sound wise. If he cared, you wouldn't be so unsure. If he cared, you wouldn't feel so unsure. That's the type of question you go through your head all day. If he loved you, you wouldn't have to ask. And sometimes that voice protected you. And sometimes it's just yesterday interrupting today. Because men are not always leaving, even when your body remembers the people who did. That's not always going on. And men cannot prove safety forever. Not because they don't care, but because exhaustion eventually will always sound like distance. And this is the part where things always ease up. Because you were not wrong for wanting closeness. And you were not weak for noticing changes. Your intention was love trying to survive. But love cannot grow where peace is constantly having to defend itself. It can't. And the deepest intimacy happens when neither person is auditioning for forgiveness they didn't earn. That's when it comes in. When questions become curiosity instead of verdict. When reassurance feels like warmth instead of oxygen. When two people can finally stop negotiating with the phantoms. Right? When you can finally back down. Because this is the truth of it all. Most people are usually never trying to hurt each other. They're trying to survive versions of love that already hurt them. Right? That's most people. And some of you lost someone good because fear spoke louder than their honesty. It's painful to hear that. But I'll tell you again. Some of you did lose someone good because fear spoke louder than honesty. And some of you left someone good because exhaustion finally started to sound like peace. And the person that you're still arguing with in your head is not even in the room anymore. But the way that you learn how to protect yourself, that still is.